Today I'm going to be chatting with a gentleman that has a OBS Ford Power Stroke. That's how it started out, and it transitioned over into a 5.9 common rail, and he did the whole build himself. Took it to incredible power levels. Wanted to ask him about the process, things he might do different, tips with both the 7.3 that he had, and also the 5.9 common rail. So I'm looking forward to chatting with him today. Before we get to it, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors that help make the Diesel podcast possible. The first is Kershaw Knives. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code 40TDP2024. You get 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get a cool knife for EDC, hunting, fishing, something around the job site. They've got a ton of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different opening mechanisms, different handle designs. We appreciate them offering this discount code just to Diesel Podcast listeners. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over to their website, use that discount code, and get 40% off MSRP. Also, we recently started our own apparel company called Rugged Threads Co. You're going to find a link down below, and we've got a whole bunch of different shirts, different mugs, things like that. We wanted to have apparel that we would wear ourselves. Some of it's truck related, some of it isn't. We really appreciate all your guys' support, all the orders that you guys have done. Really been humbled by it and excited. And as we build this up, we look forward to being able to bring you guys more things you're going to want to wear, not just as truck enthusiasts, but if you love the outdoors and a whole bunch of other hobbies. So thank you guys for all your support, and we look forward to rolling out more t-shirt designs here shortly. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Steven. He owns a Ford OBS that started as a 7.3, and now it's 5.9 common rail, making 1,000 plus horsepower. He's going to talk to us about build strategy, racing, challenges he's had, and how he overcame them. Steven, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. It's been a bit since we chatted before. I always remembered your episode telling me about your OBS Fummins and the power level and how much you love that truck. So I look forward to catching up with you, reintroducing the truck to maybe listeners that have just recently started to follow us, and have them be able to hear about a really cool build that you have and then some challenges, along the way to get it to where it's at. So welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I think if we just jump right into the truck, people love the
Mhm.
OBS Ford body style, and
Yeah,
you combine that with a Cummins engine that's making a ton of power. Tell us about how the truck started, and then the engine, the power level, just like your journey to build it into what it is now.
yeah. So I ended up with the truck because of a mishap. Actually, I think 2010, our house caught on fire, and I had my dream truck at the time was a 95 extended cab, like that nice burgundy red color, 7.3 stock. I loved it, but I only got it for a few months, and we had a house fire and it burnt down. Took the truck with it. Um, so this is back in Craigslist time. I was scrolling along and there was absolutely nothing. And I was in Massachusetts where I was growing up at the time. And I kept coming across this silver purple F-250. And me in my early 20s, I'm like, I don't want a purple truck, dude. um, I ended up honestly passing on it for about 2 weeks and then nothing popped up. So me and my cousin went to go look at it, and this is Cape Cod is where it was. So you'd think it might be a little rough. It's kind of salty down there, and the truck was beautiful. It had, some rust issues, but easily taken care of. Fell in love with it as soon as we saw it. Bought it back in the day for like $6,000. Had 150,000 miles on it. I was a ZF5 94 and a half super first gen Power Stroke, stage one injectors, single disc clutch, and I just the power bug just, you always hear about it. It always starts. It had like Tony Wildman tunes on it. I think the truck made 350 horsepower. Went to stage twos and started playing with like water methanol and the T500 high pressure oil pump from Terminator. That landed the truck about four and a quarter. Then the world hit with hybrids. I tried 250-100s. I tried 250-200s, 300-200s, 350-200s, 400-400s. I got the best out of it with, he was an S472 SXZ, twin high pressure oil pumps, homebrew fuel system. I ended up swapping to a Brian's Truck Shop E4OD. You can't race. You can, but racing with the ZF5 is oof. You're gonna go through clutches on a truck that weighs 65, 7,000 pounds. I think I got about 690 horsepower out of that.
Wow.
And it ran good, but I mean, at that point, I had already bent rods on the stock motor. So I had, a filled block. I had a girdle. I had head studs, valve train, billet rods, pretty much everything to make it, about bomb proof at 1,000 horsepower. I just couldn't get over that 700 reliably. It was lumpy. It was kind of smoky. It was grumpy when it was cold. It would buck sometimes. And it's like, I'm so far in the hole in this thing. I love the 7.3. I love the truck. But there's guys out there with so much more horsepower for with way less money into the trucks. I couldn't stomach the fact I was, $20,000-$30,000 into a truck that I absolutely adore. But it's the money I was into it for the horsepower it was, I just couldn't justify it. So this is 2017. I think I got that bug pretty hard for a common rail. The stars aligned. I sold that thing on Facebook Marketplace. Every nut, bolt, starter, flex plate, everything was gone in a matter of a week. And that funded a Facebook Marketplace budget build, 5.9 common rail. I wanted to build my own 5.9, so I had a machine block from a buddy. This is an '06 motor, so EFI Live, diesel conversion specialist, harness, adapter, the plates, everything to drop a common rail in an OBS forward. Adapt over your other basic things, fuel system. I think I had 170% injectors from industrial, used dual CP3, dual fueler kit, some piping I hodgepodge together, aerosol overhaul, purple. It looked pretty cool. Bullseye S475. I had a goal of like 800 horsepower. And the shop I was working for at a time had a dyno, and we got the dyno about the time the truck was finished. So I kind of hopped up there on one Saturday and broke the engine in, and first rip, it made like 770 or something like that on like tune one. Heat soak, check my things, and tune four, we ended up like 900 something horsepower right off the rip on a fresh motor. I'm like, I'm ecstatic. I was like, 1,000 horsepower is like, it's that close now.
Yeah.
I probably would have hit 1,000 that day, but tune five, it just the rail pressure, I ended up popping like an ejection line or something. It just shut that day down. So obviously, I don't have a truck I'm driving daily anymore. I see just how close 1,000 horsepower is, so I'm like, ooh, an S480. I've always wanted one of those. Let's try an S480, and little different tuning. I think Starlight at the time. I ended up trying the S480. I got about 1,050 horsepower, pretty close to 1,100 horsepower out of that. Man, this is getting kind of easy, and it's not killing me yet. The E4OD was still holding. I mean, that was really only built for like 800 horsepower, so it was living. So I was just kind of going through the strokes of it. I ended up doing compounds. It's like it was a genuine Garrett 94 millimeter. Wasn't the best choice. It was laggy, but I mean, I ended up getting about 1,370 or 1,380 horsepower out of that, and that brought me into 2020 period for King of Street. I believe my first year was 2020 or 2021, somewhere around there. Quite a few input shafts later in the E4D. I'll get into that a little bit later. But I broke so many of those things. It was wearing down on me. But my first year, I think, it was 2020, because that was right during the pandemic. I only made it a couple rounds into qualifying. and I was running consistent like 7.0s. It was a little laggy off the start, which is kind of why I was slow, but not 7.0s are slow, but there was more in it for 11, 1200 horsepower that I was racing at, and got into eliminations first round, and I think I was racing Mario with the red 6.7 Power Stroke. Awesome truck, very fun to race with, awesome dude. And we are neck and neck, and he backs out. I don't know if he slips, something happened, and I just go by him, and I hit about third gear locked up, about to go into overdrive, I think, and I just see the tack just
Oh, wow.
bend straight down. Something terrible happened, and parts everywhere. These are HX triple beam rods, and they cut the block literally in half. It decimated the old girl. And the cross member looked like Swiss cheese. The truck was sitting crooked after. Every bulb in the truck was out. The hood flew open. It was bad. It punched holes in everything that it could. And the rod stood a pretty good fight, considering. I think my crappy wiring is to blame for that. The speed sensor wiring, I think it made it down near the frame or drive shaft, something, and I think it lost speed signal, so it saw wide open, and maybe a speed it thought it could downshift at, because I think it went into second gear, because I've never seen the tack wrap around that far before. And this thing can spin some RPM now. And it wrapped clean around. So I'm guesstimating somewhere 7,500. And I just
Wow.
it is Molly pistons. You can't. So parts, camshaft, block, coolant, oil. Sorry. Sucker's dead.
What was that? What was that like, real quick? Because of the history you had with the truck, how you loved you loved the body style. You were replacing that one that you'd lost in a house fire. You went through the
Hmm.
whole process of building the 7.3, swapping in an E4OD, an upgraded unit. Then you go to Common Rail. You invest the time, try the different parts. You have a lot invested in this, not just money, but I think passion
Time.
and excitement and
Yep.
all those things. And then in an instant, it's gone, it's destroyed, and it's probably the shock of what did it do to the frame, what did it do to all these other things, what happened, what was that like?
Yep. For like almost a year, besides input shaft issues, it was almost flawless. Nipped the head gasket was probably the worst failure that truck had, because of the compounds, really. Um, Besides this, the trials and tribulation of just getting it smooth and no oil leaks and all that. So it's like I was driving this thing to work. I was doing rolling heaters. I'd bring it to Dunkin' Donuts. We'd go to restaurants and thing. It was just a blast. I was so proud of it. And like you said, in an instant, the worst butt puckering feeling. I mean, I was looking at the wall at 100 miles an hour, and I'm so glad it, because I was on radials at the time. To lock up something with the engine, torque converter still being partially locked, the tires did skid periodically. So like I was looking at the wall. Thankfully, it straightened out, and I was able to coast off to the side, because there's people saying, "Yo, you were about to hit that wall." It's like, I know. I got out, instant rage. I was mad. I thrashed to get to this event, to meet these guys, to race with these guys, to have 3-4 days of fun and see what we can do. And heartbreak. I mean, I got out, I was super mad, threw my helmet like an idiot. And then I looked at the truck, leaking fluids everywhere, I've never really experienced before. And I broke down in the middle of the track. I'm not gonna lie. My buddy came over, and I was on my tech crew. And he's like, "Dude, I'm so sorry." I think that's what like sent me over. So we licked our wounds and just enjoyed the event for the rest of the weekend, and just saw what it was about, because I wanted to come back again. There's so much involved to get the truck where it was. It was going to be a big step to do it all again. So we enjoyed the weekend. We drove back from Ohio. This was a Dragway 42 at the time. I live in Pennsylvania, and On the way back home, I'm scrolling the interwebs and I found a enforcer, or used enforcer, and it ended up being from the um, late David Radzirus, I think. He had the XDP monster truck. D&J initially helped him out with kind of a sponsored job. Deck plated 6.7 enforcer with all the goodies, and I really waited out because it was a used motor. It came fully dressed, it was ready to bolt in, and it was a nugget. I don't have a ton of money. This is a budget build truck, but I couldn't justify starting the ground up, knowing I was at 1400 ish range with the 5.9. I was already dancing with failure in the near future. So um, stars aligned. Things happened, allowed me to be able to purchase that, and thank you to my wife. um, and she helped me buy that, and I retrofitted the truck. So being in a monster truck chassis, it had opposing CP3 case, a really nice wet sump system. It was a very, very cool setup, but it just wouldn't fit in a Ford with a radiator and a hood. So I had to part with some of the cool parts and go right to regular case. I ended up doing like a Waterman fuel pump, so no more electric pumps on that. 14 millimeter, 12 millimeter CP3, XRG 500s. They got an S485 I got for it, like a VS Racing 106, and pieced that together, got it running. And clearly there was something wrong. Did a compression check. It had 2 burnt holes. So like, great, there's $25,000. We're 5 steps behind now. So D&J took possession of it, rebuilt it for a very fair price, and got the engine back, I think about 3 months later, just in time for the season. I got it running. I brought it straight to Fire Punk, and she ripped off 1,700 horsepower on fuel, and that was very, very satisfying. It didn't struggle. It wasn't a pain in the butt. It was smooth. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Small shutter nitrous got us almost 1,900 horsepower, mid 1,800 horsepower range, and I was thrilled, man. I had an engine that made tune 1, 11, 1,200 horsepower, almost smoke free. Mid range, 1,500 horsepower. It was just too easy to, like, you're talking things you shouldn't be able to do in a truck that heavy, and it just did it. So after all that, got it ready for King Street 2021, which is still my best year. It was almost a flawless year. It twisted a couple input shafts, and I think they had a Sancher 400 margarine shaft. That one held up the best. It stopped snapping, but would twist them. I'd still make it to rounds. And so we get back. First rounds of qualifying, this thing is snapping off 620s at 115 mile an hour. It's just like a clock. It's just 1, 2, 3, 620, 624, 622. I was like, we got a runner here. This thing is awesome. I think I won the bracket racing for the day. I did the 620 dial and came on top for the day there. I lost my butt in the dirt quite badly because I didn't have any budget left over for dirt tires, and that event is heavily weighed in the dirt, because obviously the street drive went awesome, the dyno went awesome. It clicked off 2017 horsepower, and drove on the trailer. It was awesome. But dirt drag racing on street tires and sled pull, it placed about 3/4 pack, and I lost a lot of points there. But almost no failures, almost no issues, no oil leaks, nothing. It was awesome. I drove the truck for the rest of the year, drove it to work. Fast forward to where the fun starts. is more transmission issues. Couple of rebuilds later, Sam Weiss stage 4. It was a great transmission. I ran so many 620 back-to-back passes, 1800 horsepower dyno pulls. Sorry, when the Enforcer went in, I forgot to put that in there. Sam Weiss did help me out with the stage 4 trans. So from 2020 to 2023, it was awesome. Fluid stayed clean, came up quick on the chargers. Like I was usually the last one to bump in at the lights because, you could spool this thing in 4.5 seconds. I was ready to go. It wasn't a 10-second bump in. It was ready to go. It was clean. 2022 comes and I'm the very first truck. We ended up doing our street drive first, knocked that out the very first day. And then we rolled into drag racing. I roll up. I'm the very first truck to go in the line. I was like, here's one. I know what it'll do. It should do like a 640. And I didn't make it 60 feet. It jumped, unfortunately, and it blew the output shaft into a billion pieces. It didn't end up being a billet one, I guess. I think it was just a cryo shaft. And it took out everything inside that transmission. It was a glitter bomb. It just ate everything. That 2 minutes it ran just to get it off the track and idling and whatnot. So again, like 2020, I get to watch everyone enjoy their racing. That was getting annoying because I'm looking at every truck. 3/4 of the field is 48 REs, Dodges, Duramaxes, and the Alsons do very, very well. The 48s, they hold a ton of power, but everyone's got backups. So I could have counted 5 transmissions. I could have borrowed if I was a 48. So again, we just enjoyed the weekend, came back over the winter, sent it to Sam. He rebuilt it, fixed everything. I found a good buddy who's in the process of building his 7.3 currently. He took possession of that transmission, and I had a buddy that was also parting out his 3rd gen, which was a triple turbo triple turbo 6.4, 1,700 horsepower, fantastic running truck. He was getting out of the sport, had a fresh 48 converter, adapter plate. Only thing I had to do was find out a way to make it shift. So I got an anteater. I picked up his trans. There's a Chris Gelbaugh 48RE. Put it in the truck over the winter. Drive shafts. There's a nugget there, but I no longer have to worry about drive shafts because for as long as I was making that kind of horsepower, I was on the stock 3-inch Ford. Crusty looking drive shafts that looked like they were about to fail at any given second, going, knock it off. Never really had a failure, which was nice though. So shout out to Ford for good 90s metal. 2023 beginning, we had a track rental with like Matt Sancher, a bunch of the BMW diesel guys, a couple other friends that invited me to that down in Maryland International Dragway. First time there, very warm day. I think it was 98, 100 degrees, no shade. 48RE, I'm learning how the anteater works. And first run out, terrible. My calculations were very wrong. Rev limiter. 3 passes later, I clicked off like a 980 on tune 2, I think it was. I was like, dang, it could use a little more RPM, a little harder leave. I got that dialed in and it ran a 960 at like 138. Okay. I'm gonna finally run, the 950s that I've been wanting. Heck, even to get into the 9s was an enormous feat for where I've been wanting to kind of get the truck. Always said 12s, made it to 12s. 11s came pretty easy. 10s, it clicked off bottom 10s very, very quickly. So obviously the nines, everyone, we're counting thousands at this point, but 980s first rip basically, and um, gave it a little more fuel, tune three, and some better shifting. Sorry, a little more mile per hour, and ended up doing like a 946, 948 at 140, and with a 6001 with like a 160 foot, so it's pretty bad. I've been 140 flat with the E4OD. And so 6001, very close to 590, which would have been awesome, and at 121. So I mean, we're moving. This thing is doing awesome. The rest of the summer, I just enjoyed the truck. Dirt drag raced, local drag strips. Got Grumpy with me. I know tech card, or sorry, my NHRA license to go that quick. I think you needed at a 1050. So I kind of would just do my 60 foots, launch the truck, because I was getting into suspension, because when you're going that fast, stock suspension starts getting upset really quickly. So at Maryland International Dragway, I had a new set of suspension. It's still leaf spring, by the way, but QA1 double adjustable shocks made the world of a difference. You could went from a truck that would bunny hop or have a little jump somewhere mid track to just leaving a little bit of a squat and just leave. So that leads us into King of Street 2023. Pretty successful year. I placed top half of the pack for bracket. I slowed it down a little bit. I wanted just to stay consistent. I didn't want to kill the truck. I wanted an easy day basically. 650s. I ended up breaking out second or third run into elimination. So I did pretty well, but I didn't knock it out of the park. But I placed pretty well. Street drive, I did pretty well. Obviously, we made it back. The dyno was earlier. I think that was the second day. We placed third place. Obviously, Chris Patterson smacked it out of the park with Mr. 3K. That truck is incredible. Josh McCormick, I think he hit 20. Sorry if I get this wrong. 24, maybe 2,600 horsepower on a non-girdled 6.7 street engine. It was awesome. We're the third heavy season into an enforcer. I haven't refreshed it. I haven't done anything. I barely clipped off 1,850 horsepower. It was tired. I was having a little bit of blow-by issues. I mean, every smack, I would leave a little bit of oil, quite a bit of oil on the dyno floor. So I knew it still ran awesome. It was starting to get hurt. So I was just trying to get by at that point. So we made third place on the dyno. Dirt drag racing again, made it pretty well. We were towards the top of the pack. So I was in third place for a majority of the event, and then give or take a couple points. It was a very, very tight race. It was an awesome event. Sled pulling, lost my butt pretty bad. We're going to talk about the struggles along the way. There's something with the truck. If it's to the floor for more than 5 seconds, it will just cut out. So I made it about 60 feet into the sled pull. I had 2 kits of nitrous. I let her have it for like that 4 or 5 seconds. I made it to 280 feet. It shut off. I coasted to like 290 or something like that. Pretty well, but everyone was pulling about 300 feet. So I needed 10 feet to not shut off. And we could have done much, much better. Second sled pull heat. I eased into it a little less violent because 2 kits of nitrous was kind of a lot. So we dialed it back a little bit, and I made it about 300 feet, and it broke. The rear stock pinion broke it right off the front. I think an axle shaft, some teeth in the axle, the rear gear set, and a whole bunch of oil on the ground. It's just the engine was tired. So we ended up placing seventh. I would have liked top five. I don't care about the money. I just wanted the big check to hang on the wall. It would have been cool. It would have been, it would have made it all worth it. But it's blast. I bring all my friends. We have all of our buddies were campers. And we make a little corner over there. We're the rowdy group. So we have a lot of fun. This past winter, pull the engine. I've been wanting to go through the engine myself. So hands on. I love this stuff. I mean, it's my career. It's what I do all the time. So first time breaking down this motor, and engine looked awesome. No scuffing. Bearings I could have reused. Pistons I did reuse. The rings had a 1/4 inch of ring gap. You could have cut your fingers if you rolled your fingers around them in the wrong way. There was nothing left to them. So it lived as long as it did with really tired rings. It needed a couple sleeves, so we got those machined, new set in, rebuild the engine, get her back in, go drag racing this past May for Diesel Nationals. Sorry, let me back up. Between dirt drag racing and again wanting to just make it to the end of the event, I noticed the 48 was my fluid was getting dark. It wasn't burnt, but it was getting dark. So we were the second round of dirt drag racing. At the end of the pass, it held the converter locked up. Typically when that happens, there's a lack of fluid flow. It can't push the converter back off. I was like, dang, man, we are too far into this event to have any kind of issue. So we drop the pan right there, change a filter, put new fluid in it, smack it back up, get back in line, make 2 more dirt drag passes. And basically the same thing ended up happening. So we limped it. We made the whole event, we limped it. When I got it back to the house, I pulled the engine. I sent the converter to be looked at. We broke the trans down in-house. And the trans itself looked beautiful. I could have reused every clutch. I could have reused the bands. I could have reused basically everything. It didn't really need anything, but we used DPC converters, and they said, you literally said dragon's breath, fire, somewhere to that effect. Sucker was burnt. It was bad. He sent me a new converter for this season. So now we're going to step back up to where I went drag racing back in May for Diesel Nationals. It spooled great. Truck sounded incredible. I spooled it before I put it on the trailer. I got to the event, backed the truck off the trailer, let it run for a couple minutes, spooled it up. As I was coming off the pedal, truck stalled. Like I dumped the clutch. I'm like, I know what this is. I just drove 2 hours to be very angry. Dropped the pan, loaded with clutch material again. Basically, it's dragging the converter. Don't know why. Send the converter out to be looked at again. He said the same effect. There's something nasty happening here. You got to check it out. So I sent the valve body out. I checked my anteater, my wiring, solenoids, swapped valve bodies. I swapped wiring. I changed wiring, introduced toggle switches to try and alleviate this issue. And I'm on my 3rd new converter, a different converter. So thank you, Phil and Taylor. You guys are awesome to deal with. Truck spools way faster now. It's no longer making material by lost lockup. So I don't know if that's an install error, which is very possible. That's currently where we sit. We have a very fast truck with no lockup. And King Street is in a month and 2 weeks.
Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it with an industry-leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And the other thing with that is, sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from core, street, tow haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy, increase power, increase torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. There's so many parts of this build that are really interesting to me. One, that an E4OD lived at 2,000 horsepower is really cool. Like
it did.
It took that abuse, and that power and that torque is crazy.
The demise of that ended up honestly being the overdrive clutches. There's only 3 or 4 large discs in the front behind the pump. They just couldn't handle the heat. So I had to slow the truck down and basically run more RPM and turn overdrive off is how I was getting through the traps at redline, basically. And then the constant $500 input shaft, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So that was what led to a 48.
I think the other part of this is when we think of like a big power build, it's really, we kind of gravitate towards the engine because I think you can see it. Like I'm sure when you're at an event or a show, you just pop the hood, people can look at it, get talking about turbos and injectors and injection pumps and everything. And I've always loved transmissions. I don't know why. I don't build them or anything like that, but I've always really loved the science behind them. And it kind of speaks to how complex builds like this are. Like you have this one issue that you're fighting with all this power you make, with all the experience that you have, and it's something that's doing this with the converter that's holding it back from going even faster and doing even more. And I think it just speaks to how complex and how something small, everything has to line up basically to be able to get the power and the times and everything that you want.
Late lockups, incorrect shift. Your 60-foot is what kind of makes or breaks a race. You can spin off the line. My E4OD, sometimes it had a late lockup, so that would take a 640, 630 pass to a 690 pass. Like you need to be able to put the power to the ground. Those were just kind of the woes of figuring out a standalone controller. I had it pretty dialed in for the most part, but the anteater for 48 has been very, very simple, very effective. Move it a mile per hour, you would see the change on the time slip. I haven't bested my 140. I've gotten a 148, I think is the best I've gotten with it. But again, I was having these current converter issues. I haven't raced it with the refreshed engine or trans yet because I'm not trying to cook the trans. I'm just trying to get it ironed out. I'm at the end of the list for parts to replace. Talked to Taylor today from DPC. He's swapping me out a converter basically. He thinks I may have nicked a seal at the end of where the Santra shaft sits, but I can see the light. I know it's there. I know it is very reliable, but like I said, there's a lot of moving parts, and it mostly all works very, very well together. It's not the highest dollar build there is, but for the parts that are in it, it's incredible. It runs awesome. I've told so many people this. I could put this truck in Tune 5. I could send my wife to go get groceries in it, and I won't have to worry about her clouding out an intersection. It'll shift great. It'll do its job. It'll start when she comes back out, and it's not going to smoke everywhere. You could daily drive it. Yeah, it'll haze, that's for sure. But for the power level, Tune 1 is 1,200 horsepower, and it's very tame. It's very drivable. It's rewarding.
When you look back on the whole journey, would you do things different? Would you have jumped into the common rail sooner and maybe not done some of the upgrades to the 7.3? Would you have maybe spent money differently, or are there any, I don't want to say regrets because you learned so much through it, but would you change anything about the process?
Yeah, definitely no regrets because I didn't go to school. I learned on my own dollar. Is how I got to where I am in life. Is literally by buying the parts, figuring it out. Why isn't this working? Turning that into a profession and expertise. So I went from literally A to Z on the 7.3 platform. So obviously, I don't regret any of that. If I were to build a 7.3 again, I would probably leave the same parts I had in it. I just wouldn't go into the engine really at all. I would have left it a stock bottom end truck. I would have kept it a big laggy turbo at a high enough stall to where it was still drivable and keep the torque curve low, make 600 something ish horsepower. And, if it bends a rod, bends a rod. You can go buy $1,000 engine, smack it all together in a weekend, put head studs in it, valve springs, or swap the heads, whatever you got, and enjoy a $10,000 build, basically, if you don't go into the engine. Where I went into the engine is where I kind of lost it. The girdle, the billet rods, the machining, the build block, all the hardware to go with it. It added up so quick. It was insane. When you jump over to the common rail, just a bone stock 5.9 common rail with head studs, valve springs, the injectors and turbo to match. Don't have to go into the engine really at all. You can make 1,000 horsepower. It'll live a very long time if you do it with really good tuning. I went right to live tuning from Firepunk, and it made a huge, huge difference. It was reliable. It started great even when cold. I could have been into that for a quarter of the price, basically, of the 7.3 and made almost double the horsepower. So if I knew that, I've built a little bit of a reputation. So it's like, thanks to you and your podcasts, or me and mouthing off on the internet sometimes, or helping. I do try and help a lot of people on the internet. So the Facebook pages, I try and correct people. Tech specs, I offer everything I absolutely can because I want people to spend their money wisely. The last 10, 15 people have messaged me. I was like, I can spend your money well. I'd like to see you make an efficient 8,000-9,000 horsepower, 500 horsepower. I'd like to see you spend your money well. And thanks to my own experience and stupidity at times, I built that platform where in the knowledge base. So that's that.
What I love about it is, and I've talked about this recently, or it's just come up on podcasts over the summer, is when I think way back to what really got diesel performance going and what hooked me and really changed my life and got me into it in different capacities was the ability to have a truck that I could drive every day, that I could make a lot more power than stock, have it be as reliable as possible, and do it with a budget in mind. And it always kind
Hmm.
of it's changed so much over, I don't know, the last 6 7 years,
Yep.
where like 1,000 horsepower way back in the day, you would be on a magazine cover with that,
Oh yeah. Yep.
or on a forum.
That was the
Everyone,
goal.
yeah, it was 1,000 horsepower daily
Yeah.
driver. And then now that trucks are 2,000 plus, 3,000 plus, and I've
It's
really
insane.
kind of drawn an interest into what is reliable and I don't want to say affordable because I know it's all expensive, but
Hmm.
maintainable. What can you maintain? And so I wanted to ask you, what would you say is the sweet spot for common rail performance? Where would you say it's 1,000 horsepower? Would you say it's 12? Would you say it's 8? In your personal experience, where is the happy spot for something you could drive every day? Maybe tow a light trailer, take
Hmm.
it on a trip if you want, but then hit the drag strip and have some fun.
I would say for a 5.9, we'll call it 0607. I've always dealt with the wide bowl EFI Live because your tuning platform. There's so many fantastic avenues for tuning, and tuning is an enormous part of it. That's how you can have a, a monster and have it still be streetable. Um, I would say 800 horsepower is very reliable. If on a single turbo, you could squeeze more horsepower out of smaller parts with a sizable injector pulled back, so you're not killing it with fuel, you're not killing it with pulse width and timing. It's clean. You can still tow a trailer. It might, you're going to sacrifice something. So you're going to sacrifice 200 RPM of spool, but you can still pull a trailer with decent temperatures. Um, I mean, you can make 1,000 horsepower. It's not going to kill the truck. Will it live forever? No. Will it live for a very long time if you're not trying to beat its brains out every weekend? It's all really into the driver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 12, 1,300 horsepower, even 1,400 horsepower is very, very doable on a stock block 5.9 stock piston with rods. You don't even need a camshaft, but a camshaft helps drive bigger chargers. Small compounds or whatever your driving style is, whatever you want to do with the truck, but like stock appearing with like an over under, like a 66, 85 over under, easy 600 horsepower, tune one, tune two, up to 1,000 horsepower, 100% injectors, 150% injectors from, name brand, good quality that someone that'll back you and answer questions is very, very big. Um, 6.7s make so much more torque that their stock rods, that 800 horsepower level, it's easier to bend rods in those. So it's like, even though you only made 800 horsepower, you're talking 16, 1,700 pounds of torque on a stock rod. That's incredible, but it's a stock rod, man.
Yeah.
It's, everything has its limits. So, I mean, honestly, like 6.7, I'd pull it back a little bit, 650, 700 horsepower. Don't kill it. Maybe you have a little bit bigger of a turbo because that added displacement, you can really, you can move up to a sizable charger and still be very enjoyable to drive. Uh, pull a little bit of the torque out of it, gain your horsepower out of the bigger turbo, and it'll be an efficient, fun, reliable setup. You really don't need to get into rods until, you know, I'd say, I mean, I've done 1,200 horsepower on stock rods. Cringed a couple times, but as I knew I was 1,000 horsepower and up on a 5.9, you should do rods. Um, you can get away with it. It won't live. It'll live for a while. Um, but it is reliable because the torque curve is just so much higher. Um, Torque curve for 6.7 is so much lower. So I mean, 800 horsepower and up, you should probably put some Street Fighters. Very, very affordable rod. I think they're $1,600, and there's people who have made 3,000 horsepower on them. You can't beat that dollar value. You can't. That's a stock piston motor. Um, but I mean, 800 horsepower, basically both platforms is very reliable.
It's it's such a hard platform to beat, especially with EFI Live on the '06, '07s and the aftermarket support that is still there. That things are still being done. It's such a hard truck to beat if you want that 1,000 horsepower. Like I said, I don't like to say budget because I know it's still expensive. You're still spending money on
Yeah.
turbos and
Yep.
injectors, injection pump, but it's just so it's tough to compete with it. And I think the temptation with all the advancements that have happened in racing can be to take it even farther. And that's what I wanted to ask you as you look towards the future of your truck. Say
Hmm.
you get this issue, I'm sure you will, that you get it figured out with the converter and it runs great.
Yeah.
Do you think you
Yep.
might aim for 3,000 in the future? Do you think you might want to get over it, or what's your plan in the future
Oof.
with the truck?
I was ecstatic to make 2000 horsepower. Um, I know the engine will take more. My wallet doesn't want to take any more. It is very, very reliable. It'll make you sweat. I enjoy taking people for rides in the thing because it quite literally changes people's lives. I was like, I tell people it's gonna ruin how you look at things. This thing it's like driving a high horsepower gas. But in a heavy truck, it's nuts. It just changes your perspective on things. Um, I forgot where I was going there.
Well, you said something really cool about changing people's lives, and it reminded me
Oh
of
yeah.
something. It reminded me of being like in my early 20s. I had a diesel truck. It was basically stock, and there was a local shop to me. I had just stopped in to, I think, check it out or just see, hey, what's available. I had a Cummins at the time, and I got talking with the owner, and he had, I don't remember the whole setup, but I know it was a second gen 4-wheel drive regular cab, something with the
Hmm.
VP pump compound. It was just, it made more than stock power. And he
Hmm.
said, "Hey, you want to go for a ride? I'll take you around the block." And he took me, and he got into it a little bit. It changed my life because I always thought of those trucks as
Yeah.
like, it's what people who are landscaping or have a construction company.
Yep.
They're towing a trailer. That's
Yep.
all they do. And this thing would just put you in the seat and go, and that just
Yep.
started the whole process. So I imagine when you're at events or you're talking with people, maybe they're not familiar with it and they can just see it,
Hmm.
hear it, watch it go down the track. Maybe, you take them around the block or something. It can change your whole career path. It can change everything.
Yes. Um, Perspective is a lot, and so are your goals. If you stay within your realistic budget, because I mean, I didn't stop with the truck because I want the experience. I don't want to learn from anyone else. I really didn't learn from anyone else. Um, I shut my mouth for the most part when I was building it. I just read and read and read and sifted through the BS and what worked, what doesn't work, what kills motors, what doesn't kill motors, realistic goals for the future. That's kind of why I didn't stop at the truck. I just honestly, 2000 horsepower is more than enough for 99% of the people. And for the 1% of us sick people that like to go that fast in a truck that weighs 6,000 pounds and some of them heavier, um, it is a rush. But I mean, keep realistic goals in mind. There's so much time, and the more horsepower you make, the reliability does come into the reliability. Like if you want to work on a truck all the time, slam a fun setup in it, go beat the crap out of it, hang out with your buddies, drink beer on the weekends, and wrench. But if you want a clean setup, it does take some refinement, good parts, and patience. And I have more time than I'll ever get back into the setup. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Um, but I'm throttling back on it a little bit. Where it is kind of where it's going to stay. Um, if I make 2200 horsepower with a bigger nitrous kit, the truck will take it, the trans will take it, axles should take it now. That's plenty.
Yeah.
9 seconds at almost 150 miles an hour is sketchy, especially on big old marshmallow tires and you're hitting the brakes. it's an experience, Patrick. When you start it cold on a 55-degree morning or something to go take a buddy for a ride that's heard all about it your whole life, and you finally meet up with them at a car meet or something, or take a family member for a ride, and they're doing this,
Yeah.
and I'm just what? Relax. I've got it. We're good. They had a ride of their lives. I saw them smile, enjoy something that isn't in their wheelhouse or will be in their wheelhouse. I passed my experience on to them. So I'm just gonna enjoy it honestly from here. That's kind of
I had a blast chatting with you years ago, and I wanted to reconnect because I remember there were so many parts at that time of your story that really interested me with the swap and your goals for it,
hmm
and how like your passion for this is like the friends that I have. Like when I would
yeah.
meet up with somebody on the weekend and we'd throw an intercooler on something or do a turbo swap, like that's really diesel performance to me. It's not so
hmm
much when it's a racing business per se. Like it's really cool. I love the power
hmm
levels. I love the development that comes from it. But
Yep.
deep down, it's sitting around with a bunch of guys and talking about a truck, or you make this one change or do this one thing and the truck is different and everyone's excited about it. So to sit down in 2024 and talk about it, it
hmm
is really cool. So I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing what you do this year. Keep me updated on it. Let me know when you get that issue solved with the converter. I know
I
people are
will
gonna,
because it's killing me.
yeah, people are gonna, they're gonna want to know. Someone else out there might be fighting it now or in the future, and they'll find
Yeah.
our podcast and they'll say, hey, what did he ever find out what the issue was? So definitely keep me updated,
Yeah.
Steven. I appreciate the build. I appreciate your passion for it, and
Mm.
hopefully we can talk in the future.
Awesome, Patrick. Thank you.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 40TDP 2024. Get you 40% off MSRP. If you're in the market for an EDC knife or something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house, they've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different opening mechanisms, different handle designs, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget. We appreciate them offering that discount code just for you guys to be able to save some money and get some good quality gear. Also, we recently started our own apparel company. Like the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, we got a bunch of different things related to trucks, things that aren't related to trucks. Basically, we wanted apparel that we would wear ourselves when we're out and about, or have it on a mug, different things like that. We've been really humbled by the orders, the support you guys have given us. We look forward to being able to incorporate some of the ideas. You guys had great ideas for things. And so I just wanted to thank everyone. Head down to the link down below. Check out what we got. And if you got an idea for something, definitely let us know. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters. Tyler Loewen of 23 Diesel, Colby, CUTTERUP, Rob, J Cole, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 8 of the Diesel Podcast, and look forward to bringing you guys more of the content that you want to hear in 2024. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.